Hello, everybody in the MindBody community. This is Dr. Kim Duramo, and I am going to be sharing MindBody TV today about how to heal yourself through healing others. So hello to everybody who's joining live, and hello to everybody who's listening to the recording, watching the recording, or on YouTube, or listening to the podcast. There are a lot of people who are purposely, doing things to heal others. As a doctor, that was a big part of what I was involved in. But there are a lot of people who are in different kinds of practices for healing others. Or you might consider, with your family members or people you care about, how you can bring healing to others. And I'm not going to talk so much about what we're doing specifically to make something happen in our world or manifest something, but more what is our internal process where we're other focused, where we're focusing with compassion, with intention on what's happening for others that allows something really powerful to happen within ourselves. So whether you are someone who's professionally healing others or just a regular person in the world that cares about people, this is something really, really important to all of us, and something I have found to be a really powerful way to activate healing within ourselves as an individual. So I always love hearing where people are tuning in from. Marit from Norway, hello. Isabel from Montreal, hello. Jennifer, Angelique, Rachel from UK, Jen, Cassie. I see a lot of familiar faces, and it's great to have everybody here. Okay, so there is a lot of research in mind-body medicine about the power of intention, holding an intention for ourselves, creating a vision board, quote-unquote positive thinking, meditation, and what this does within our own body. Cellularly, physiologically, what this does to the immune system, the digestive system, what this does in the brain. There is not a cell that is not affected very powerfully by the power of intention and the power of our focus. In fact, as soon as we begin to focus on what is unwanted, or I feel powerless, or this person did this thing to me, or, oh, I don't want to go to work today, it will create the opposite effect and have a dampening physiologic effect on our cells, on our metabolism, on our digestion, every aspect of the body. There are a lot of studies by the Institute of Heart Math that show this electromagnetically, that when we're in a resistant emotional state, like feeling anger or shame or frustration, that it will immediately shift our physiology in a negative way that impacts health. But there are even more studies that show how this affects our DNA expression, that the genes for things like cancer or diabetes will be turned on. So we will express disease that would otherwise be dormant if we're routinely in these physiologic emotional states. And then the opposite is true, that if we're in heightened states of joy, love, compassion, generosity, those genes get turned off, and then the genes for health and vitality and living longer get turned on. So it's pretty fascinating what we see in the body. But what about when our focus of intention is on someone outside of us? So I'm going to talk a little bit about these really fascinating studies that were done by Lynn McTaggart. She is a woman, I've actually interviewed her in the past, and her work's really incredible. She's a journalist who became really fascinated with understanding health and wellness and what makes the body well, and how a lot of this is not being reported. And then there's a lot of media attention around, right now with coronavirus, and watch out, or hey, the flu is really bad and make sure you do this and that, and these fear tactics that definitely make for good media outcomes as far as people tuning in, but aren't necessarily reflective of what's helpful information for us. So she's created lots of publications to share different kind of information. And one of them, which she did, these experiments, were experiments with people intending for other living things, and then looking at the results of that, what's happening. So they started off with things like barley, where they could really control what's happening so that just the intention was like the only factor they really had to account for. They could easily have a control group of barley that no one is putting any attention or intention on, and look at the regular growth of that, you know, barley sitting there all by itself, or the barley that was being intended in a positive way. Same thing with bacteria. So they would assist the growth and overgrowth of these bacteria. The bacteria could thrive versus the control bacteria, you know, just along a regular growth curve, when people were gathered to intend for the robust growth for that bacteria. But the really fascinating thing about her studies were when they started to do them with human subjects. So they'd have people gathered, and they had like tens of thousands of people, 15,000 sometimes, in these experiments. And they would intend for a person who maybe was in a major health crisis, or had had a major trauma, or had a really severe cancer that was deemed, you know, there's no way this person will live. And they saw really remarkable things happen. Now, this is nothing new. Studies like this have been out for decades and decades. It was the beginning of my deepest inspiration in mind-body medicine when I learned about the Bird prayer studies, Dr. Bird, B-Y-R-D, in the 80s. And I thought, this is amazing. Why isn't this more in the forefront of medicine? And we're looking more into what's being activated and how to allow these unthinkable healings to occur. It's been decades now, and certainly that is more and more being incorporated into medicine. But there are those of us like myself who have dedicated our careers to this and are advancing things in that direction. But the fascinating thing about Lynn's research, which we're speaking about here, was what happened to the intenders. So as soon as they started with these experiments on humans, yes, amazing healings would happen. Yes, unthinkable things that defied our current medical conventional understanding of what's possible. But what happened for the intendees, the groups of people, the individuals who were intending, was even more remarkable. They would begin to have experiences of lightness, unity oneness consciousness, pain that they'd had for decades completely resolving, like sometimes coming to a head during the experiment and then completely dissolving. They never had that pain again. Relationships healing, where someone they'd been estranged from for decades came back into their life and they had a beautiful heart connection. Relationships where they've been having challenges, having those challenges dissolve and connecting with their loved ones. All kinds of health challenges, you name it, cancer, autoimmune disease, chronic pain, chronic fatigue, completely resolving. And then other things like people being inspired to do work they really cared about and go out and start a whole new business and leave their career as like an accountant. Boom, major life changes over the course of time while they are doing these experiments. So what was it that created this for the intenders, and how can we access this for ourselves? So I'm going to just look through the comments to see if there's any major questions here. Jay says, it sounds like healing karma. Yeah, people can think of it as healing karma. Like you do something good for someone else, it comes back to you. But why? What is actually happening in the body and in our electromagnetics that allows this to happen? Tisvi says, I joined the instant elevation. There was talk about blowing away chalk dust. Is there a limit to a person's power that he should feel without putting people down? Let me just think about how this is. There's not a limit to the power we can access when we are in this kind of alignment. And there does seem to be a shift when it's for ourselves and how far we can go as an individual versus when it's for someone else, when we are intending for another. So I'm going to share a little bit about that, and you can definitely apply it to everything that's in the Instant Elevation and any of the other programs. I'm going to bring this work a lot more powerfully into my live work that I'm doing with people in the Embracing Health program. So if you are part of that program, or if you would like to join, we will be going much deeper to harness this effect. Okay, let me just look through. Oh, thanks for the birthday wishes. Hello. All right. So one of the things, and I kind of looked in energetically with my own insight, what is it that happens for us when we intend for others? Because I've started to practice this in a deeper way. I do a lot of work with others, but to actually spend time, and it was even in like 5-minute increments of being in intention for another, that allowed this powerful effect to happen for individuals. So one of the first things that happened that allows this alignment is when we're focusing on ourselves. You know, you've heard me say before, where your attention goes, your energy flows. Your cells are listening. When we're focused on our problem, my pain, my autoimmune disease, my migraine headaches, my fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, you name it, my thyroid disease, we're actually bringing that into our intention. Even though we're intending like to be pain-free, we're still holding a perspective of ourselves and of the quote unquote problem. But in order to allow that to transmute, to dissolve, we've got to be in a higher frequency electromagnetically, energetically, than where the problem resides. So it's kind of like locking us into that perspective we're in and relating with our own problem when we're trying to heal ourselves. In fact, one of the things Lynn McTaggart said in her book, her recent book is called The Power of 8, was self-healing is, I can't remember the exact line, but it was like, it's the surest way to stay stuck is to continue to try to heal yourself, which is something I've been saying in my work for so long. Like, you cannot heal yourself. You can only open to the circumstances and conditions that allow you to be healed. And so what they found with these experiments was like, the more people were trying to heal themselves and trying to heal themselves and trying to intend for themselves, there was a limit. There was a ceiling. They could only go so far. But when they opened that up to allow the intention for another, it went way beyond what they were able to create for themselves. And so the first piece of this is simply non-attachment. Non-attachment. When we're in our own thing and intending for ourselves, and I want to be healed, and let me do this tool or this technique, whether it's meditation or intention or it's any of the tools in the instant elevation, how am I using that tool? It can move a lot more energy and let a lot more power for healing come through when you're allowing this for the intention toward another. So the non-attachment is automatically built in. These were people they didn't even know who were on the other side of the world maybe, but they could connect with them in compassion. And so not being so attached as they would if it was like myself or my grandmother or my loved one who I care so much about, released any of the resistance that was built into the equation. So that was the first piece. The other piece is when we connect it with another who they weren't physically present, because these people were all over the world online, not even like present to each other or the subject, they're connecting through unity consciousness. Especially if you're an empath, you can feel that person, you can feel the compassion you have for them. You can feel maybe what they're going through. You can feel their pain. And if you're like, I have been, you might feel lots of people's pain. You might feel lots of things that kind of aren't really yours, but can you meet that with compassion? So we can connect with others in this way, and we're automatically entering unity consciousness when we do. Forgetting the idea that I'm separate from you, I can't know what's going on for you, I can't feel what's happening with you. When they allowed themselves to do it anyway, they actually entered a higher frequency. So that's the second piece. Non-resistance, so higher frequency automatically, and unity consciousness accesses us to a higher frequency, higher consciousness, because it assumes we are one, we are connected in some way. The other piece was the love and compassion they were connecting in when holding the intention for another. So instead of falling into, oh, the poor thing, how pathetic, how sad, how awful, and going into grief, powerlessness, or despair, the way they did the intention, because you can feel like that comes up a lot for people when they're perceiving another, especially if you're like a healer or a doctor where you're like, oh my God, there's so much going on with this person. What do I do? You've got to be able to access your own space of compassion in order to hold that space for another. This was one of the most powerful things in my practice that changed everything, that allowed people to begin to heal very, very quickly when I'd work with them either privately, one-on-one, or in groups, is my ability, because I've been able and willing to meet my own pain with compassion and go deeper, I can hold a really amazing space for others that allows this transmutation. So that was the other thing, was like, you're really accessing higher and higher levels of love and compassion. Well, it's feeding your body. Your body is the channel. Your body is the space through which you are intending. So it affects you even more powerfully. Okay, I wrote down a couple notes on this. When we're intending, we're actually in the space, you know, people will talk about abundance. And if you're giving, like give someone some money, give someone some love, give someone compliments, you are the source of that. You experience yourself as, I can give this because I have it. I have enough. I can share joy with another. I have enough. I can share love with another. I have enough. I can share money with another. You automatically experience yourself in fullness when you are contributing. So in this exercise of intending for another, that's another factor, is like, I am in my wholeness. I'm connecting with my wholeness as a foregone conclusion as I'm contributing to another. So this is another really powerful activator of our own health, our own ability to receive. And then the last piece, which I think is one of the biggest pieces for us when we have a disease, when we're chronically in a condition, when we're focusing on our symptoms, is to become other focused. We are no longer honing in and focusing on the problem in our own perception, my broken self, my pain, and all the hopelessness that's gone along with it, and all the despair that's gone along with it, and all the grief that's gone along with it. We're actually in a space where we're beyond that. So we're no longer, sort of hunkered down by that in our own frequency, because we are, instead of focusing so much on self, we're letting something higher come in. A little more light in. There we go. And I love that Lynn said this in her book too. It was actually her husband, Brian, who said, you know, Jean-Paul Sartre's quote about hell is other people. And he said, well, hell is the idea that they're thinking there are other people. So when we're in separation consciousness, there's them and there's me. I'm separate. I'm alone. I'm not understood. I don't have what I need. Instead of perceiving unity consciousness, I'm connected with everyone everywhere. I'm not alone. It can create a living hell. We are in our own projection of the impossible. And she also talked about, there was another piece I wanted to mention with our focus. So she said the focusing on the self, like get over yourself, get off yourself, and you don't even need to make it wrong, but that will immediately allow you to let more light in, to let more healing energy in, to let your body lighten up and heal. Now, I took that for so long years ago, you know, before reading her book and being introduced to this amazing work, like, because I see so many people focusing on others, but doing it as an escape of self, doing it as a betrayal of self. I have to take care of them. I have to do for them. I have to help them. And that is not what we're talking about here. Self-betrayal is not the same thing as getting off your self-focus. Because a lot of times the self-focus is on my broken self, on my problem, and all the despair I'm really feeling over it. I know that's what kept things locked in for me for so long. Every time I would feel the symptoms and the pain and the sensations, it was like, oh no, what am I gonna do? This is awful. I'm afraid it will get worse. I'm frustrated it's not getting better. I feel hopeless. Nothing I'm trying is working. And so this kind of other focus in honoring of the self is completely different. So it's not the same as like I got to do for everyone else. Let me keep taking care of them and ignoring myself and I'll get better. No, 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 no. Because 90% of the people I'm seeing who are coming to me for assistance are in that pattern, and that is not what is going to serve you. Like taking all your time, exhausting yourself. I have to do more. No, this is intention from a space of wholeness. I honor myself and hold the space of my own lightness, and I can therefore extend that and let it flow from me to you. So I want you to have this awareness, not only because we're seeing how powerfully things can transmute physical disease, stage 4 lymphoma, tumors in the body, shrinking, dissolving, pain going away, autoimmune disease, the immune system rebalancing, every disease you can think of, like we've seen this kind of healing. But how can we activate this for ourselves in an even more powerful way? By being the light that we're intending for others. Not giving our light to them, not giving our energy to them, not giving our time to them and not really receiving, but opening to receive for the purpose of letting it flow through to others. We actually will open even more fully for that purpose than we will just for ourselves. Because when we do it for ourselves, we're still in our limitation. I don't have what I need. I'm not okay. I'm struggling. Our delusion of powerlessness. So this is a really powerful way I found, and I will be going much deeper with this in the Embracing Health group, but I wanted to share it in here today, just kind of a general overview to invite people into knowing what's possible. Grace says, a shift from empathy to source's relationship to pure light that we always are is knowing of compassion, and our relationship to this moment is mandatory. How do we embrace source? That is how we embrace the source in all there is, period. It is definitely like, because I've spoken to a lot of people who are super, super energy sensitive and empathic, who are still in that separation consciousness. I'm taking on everyone's energy and it's heavy and I feel like a victim, versus I can meet these energies from my space of wholeness for myself and others, which really has been a major foundation of my work. But it's just even more validation and evidence through this research and these experiments that were conducted of how powerful that really is. Always when we're empathic, it is for the purpose of having this conscious awareness so that we can meet the energies with compassion for ourselves and for others. And this is like so much of the work we're doing in the Embracing Health group. And it empowers you, right? Because if you're an empath, it's like, oh my God, I either just shut it down, and now I just shut down like my money flows and my relationships and my passion, or I keep trying to save everybody and it just gets heavier. So it's essential to begin to come into our own wholeness, to even perceive this whole like empath state, feeling energy, taking it on, and begin to do it in a completely different way. Jillian says, I love this. I just had this conversation with someone else the other day. I'm always worried that I won't be able to feel good enough to help others. Yeah, so meet your inadequacy, because that's all that needs to clear. You can meet it. Meet this space in you with compassion, and actually meet it along with all those people who are experiencing the same thing. You're not alone. This is a collective energy where people feel inadequate, where people feel despair, and you'll feel it as your own. And you can shift that like by meeting those spaces. Every tool in the Instant Elevation is designed for this. Every tool in the MindBody Toolkit, my book, is designed for this. So pick one. Practice, go deeper. You will see what's there. Randy says, what about when you start to intend for another and you bump up against your own energies of hopelessness or despair for them? Yeah, that's what you're there to transmute. The way you're holding them small, the way you're saying it's not possible, the way you have your own hopelessness and despair. That's what's there for you to meet. Hugh Len was an MD psychiatrist who did some really incredible work like this, using the Hawaiian art of Ho'oponopono, which is very similar to what Lynn McTaggart's book, In the Power of Eight, in a way. It's very similar to what her experiments showed, and cleared out a whole psych ward of these like totally hopeless, quote unquote, individuals, you know, that they just had to chemically sedate and restrain so they weren't wreaking havoc and destroying themselves and others. And he used this really powerful way of embodying compassion for himself, meeting the spaces of despair within himself for them. And I actually studied with him to integrate this into my work. And I think it's one of the most powerful things I've ever done is the Ho'oponopono. Okay, let's see what other comments we have. There are other questions. And for those of you on the recording, I will definitely come in to look at the comments and questions. Jennifer said, so go ahead and, you know, if you're listening to the recording, you can type in, true self-love is acknowledging that we are at our essence, love ourselves. To connect to love, we not only express compassion and kindness to others, but we also allow it to flow through us and outwards. By experiencing this flow, we actually come to know love for self, which cannot help but radiate unto those around us. So beautifully put. And that is like the hardest to meet when we feel like our condition is so unacceptable, because we think that loving it and inviting love in will actually make it persist, which is like the biggest lie. Inviting more harmony in always allows the body to reharmonize. And sometimes it can intensify before it does that, which is what a lot of the participants in these experiments found. Like my severe hip pain that I've had for so many years got really intense during the experiment, and then it completely went away, and I haven't had it since. And there were many, many reports of things intensifying. Even in some of the experiments where they were intending for others, some of the situations of, because violence, they found even in groups of people in certain areas of the world, violence would completely, you know, go from like, you know, would dissolve like 80% from a heightened state of violence to like 80% less of what they were experiencing. Terrorists, people killing lots of people, like all kinds of things they could count. But sometimes things would intensify just before they fell off, even for those they were intending for. And that was kind of fascinating. So that's why I'll always invite people, don't make it mean anything. When you're on that path of expansion, if things seem to come up before they dissolve, because they've been buried, buried, buried under there, they've got to come up so that the energy can move. It is moving and it will move out. And Julie says, yes, I can testify to the truth of this. It's so empowering to shift your perspective this way. It feels so good to shift the role of supporter instead of always feeling like the supported. It's easy to believe at first that you're not strong enough to do it. But if you just show up with love and be that love, it's all that's required for you. Yeah, it's true. And it's compassion. And love is really, I thought of this a lot being the same thing, and they are very similar, and they're also distinct. The compassion you have in connecting with another in pain, that I feel your pain as I have felt my own. And I'm going to be sharing a process for this with the Embracing Health group and bringing us through this much more deeply. But also the love that you have for yourself and for others, which for most people is so profound and unthinkable and way beyond what most people think. I remember my mom, when we were little kids, was really afraid if we'd you go over somebody else's house, and she's like, no, you can't have a sleepover over somebody else's house, because, you know, if the house is on fire, you run in to save your own kid, but you're not going to run in and risk your life for someone else's. And I mean, that's like the least likely thing that's going to happen on any given sleepover, but that's some of the fears that she held. And I remember thinking about that, like, is that really true? And it's not. It's actually, we've had many studies about this. People would risk their life even for a stranger or an animal when they know that person is calling for help, when they know that person is in there, when they know there's a possibility to save them. People will risk their life even for a stranger. Not just firefighters, like ordinary people do extraordinary things. And so we all do have profound, unthinkable compassion for others. That just is part of our nature. And that's kind of why, being an empath, you feel things so strongly, But especially for empathic people who are suffering or experiencing disease, it is essential to step into a space to transmute this and experience it all very differently from a vantage point of power, so you can actually do what you're here to do as a highly sensitive being. Melissa says, oh, you just said the very words I needed. I always thought acknowledgement of it was wrong. So I've been fighting acceptance versus trying to find a cure. I'm on a heavy pursuit of self-love. Can you speak more to acknowledging it? Yeah, as we acknowledge what's happening for us, we bring light to that space of darkness. People think it's focusing on the negative that is harmful to the body. It's not. It's suppressing the negative. So when we're suppressing states of anger, fear, shame, which so many of us have some level of that we've suppressed, and then we got to overachieve and work and try to overcome our own sense of inadequacy. It's suppressing those energies that is so profoundly toxic, not the energies themselves. In fact, when we honor our shame and we share it with love and with compassion, even just for ourselves, like, you know, pull out your journal and write, like, this is how I actually feel sometimes. But hold it to your heart. Bring that to your heart and honor, these are the feelings and thoughts I've been having. I choose to witness this in compassion. Let it be seen, journal it, write it down, if only to yourself, and then honor it, bring it to your heart, let it transmute. I hold a space of compassion for everything I've thought and felt about this. That is where the healing happens. So yeah, it's so crazy how people think like, I can't be negative, so they suppress. But that's really the toxic thing. And I think a lot of that, like, law of attraction stuff ends up getting construed that way. And it's really not how it's meant. So let me know how it goes with practicing this. For those of you who would like to work with me on a much deeper level live, I will put the link for the Embracing Health program, drkimd.com/health. And that's a year-long integration that we go through together. We do have a live retreat coming up in May. For those of you who would like to join me, it is for women only this time. It's called the Alive Woman Retreat. We'll be doing some really powerful integrations online before you come for that retreat in May. So you can participate just online. And for those of you who would like to join me live in Phoenix, we will be at a truly extraordinary place doing some absolutely life-altering things at the retreat in May. And there's information on the website at drkimd.com/retreat. And anyone who wants to reach out, if you have questions on that, just send an email to us at support@drkimd.com. Tisby says, I'm a bit desperate. I spoke about blowing away the chalk dust. Is there a limit on how much power you should feel? It's up to you how far you're willing to go with what's possible. How much of your real self you're willing to access. How much power you're willing to let yourself have. Because our beliefs really do create our reality. And when we're in self-suppression or we're just too scared to meet how powerful we really are, it's okay. You know, have compassion for yourself in your fear, where you're still, you're still not ready. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you start making it wrong or buying into the fear, or, you don't need to make a drama out of it. And so if you just I'm going to just look into this comment, but this person, Tisby, I'm just desperate. Is there a limit on how much power we should feel? So just relax around that. Just let yourself breathe. Breathe into the heart. When you're feeling desperate, when you're feeling fear, hi Jenny, let yourself allow just a physical relaxation in the body, just 2%. Will open you to that much more receptivity of the love that's really here for you, of the possibilities that are really here for you, of the healing that's really here for you. So it's okay sometimes when we meet that fear and we meet that barrier of like, ooh, this is as far as I'm willing to go. This is like shattering my reality of what I thought should be possible. Just relax around that. It's okay to honor yourself. So honor yourself in the equation of your expansion. And, and see what that creates. All right, everybody, I'm going to complete our broadcast for today, and I'm sending lots of love. Let me know how you play with this and what you notice. And we'll be here every week live on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Mountain. I'm taking a really special trip this weekend, so I'll be off the grid. But I might, journal some things about it and share, because it's going to be a really amazing time with some women up in the mountains. And for those of you who are percolating in the possibility of the Alive Woman program and retreat, I would love to have you join me live in May. And you can get more information at drkimd.com/retreat. And like I said, there's an online component of that as well. For those of you who want to go deeper into the year-long integration, you can enroll in the Embracing Health program, and we'll go deeper with your personal journey live. That's at drkimd.com/health. We will be integrating this work of holding intention and allowing unthinkable things for yourself to a much deeper degree. So lots of love, everybody, and I'll see you soon.